Now, to your point, James, about if you think Israel has overreacted, we invaded 2 fucking countries. Like, we shipped our entire army.
That's what I'm saying. We can't talk shit.
We actually made up a reason to attack a country.
Yeah, USS Maine, the Gulf of Tonkin. I mean,
we were not starving them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't care. They all fucking.
Oh, you don't care? Okay. It's a false analogy. It's a false analogy. They're not behaving the same way we did. We were tough. They're in a blood rage.
What about World War II standards? We firebombed fucking villages, and then the nuke thing.
It's not World War II. And starving people is tough. It's really, really, really tough.
To the Israelis, it feels like that probably. Like, this is their, apocalypse, dude. Their D-Day.
All right, Gabriel, you get a chance to go?
Well, I'm sorry. Am I done?
Hi, everybody. This is John, back with Real Veteran News, here with 3 friends, good panel of all guys this time. We got 3 Rangers and another Army vet. Were you Ranger?
I was not, no.
Yeah. No, okay. We got another Army vet. So we're still very heavily skewed towards the Army. We have Mason, but we will be continuing our 4-person news analysis show where we'll talk about the top news of interest to veterans of the week. We've got good news this week. We've got new guest that hasn't been on the show before, Gabriel Shippey. Welcome, Gabriel.
Thank you, John. Glad to be here.
Cool. All right. So we also have James and Doug. Why don't we start introducing ourselves, and we'll do Gabriel first since it's his first time.
Awesome, guys. I appreciate it. When Robin reached out to me about this, I was excited. Like I told John the other day and James, any opportunity to break bread and have dialogue with veterans is one that I'm always eager to participate in. So this is really cool. I appreciate being here. A little background about me and my military service. I served 4 years enlisted as a 42 Alpha in the Army, first duty station after.
Oh, what's that?
Yeah, what's a 42 Alpha?
Oh, a human resources specialist.
All right, let's go.
I forget we may have some non-audience members, but yeah, human resources, which served me well once I got out, which was great. That was a good choice.
He's the only one of the 4 of us that actually has a career that translated. Yes.
That's what I'm doing now, going to college because none of my gunslinging translates.
I know, my career is a shambles. All right. Well, I think actually James is the next newest. I think Doug has been on before James. So, James, why don't you reintroduce yourself?
My name is James Webb. I'm originally from Madison, Virginia. Served with John in the 3rd Ranger Battalion. We went on 2 deployments together. He carried a machine gun while I carried a grenade launcher. I got hit by a truck driver, was forced to medically retire, and I got into introducing veterans to agriculture and positive outdoor recreation, most notably through horses and horseback riding. Currently in DC, co-located with John, and going to college.
All right. James is filling in, making sure we round out the 4-person group. I'm really glad he's on the show because it's super easy for me to get him to laugh at my jokes. So I say, let's go on there.
Yeah, I smile too much. So my rip cadre told me that.
Wait, tell them what they told you into the Rangers.
Yeah, my rip cadre, they walked up to me and they said, "You smile too much." I said, "Holy shit."
That's not exactly what he said, but James wants us to go PG. All right.
Yeah.
Doug Spear.
Hey, everybody. My name is Doug Spear. Yeah, I'm from California. I enlisted when I was 17 in 1986. Did a tour and a half at 2nd Ranger Battalion, basically. Got out, went to college, went back in as an officer. So, yeah, I'm a Mustang, and I flew Kiowa Warriors for another 10 years and got out in 04, I believe. It's been so long ago. So, and then did some contracting after that, probably another 15 years. Yeah, so I've done this a couple times, so glad to be on board today.
Awesome. Yeah, I knew you'd done the pilot thing. I didn't know if you were how that worked out, but officer, I love, and we all love prior enlisted officers, right?
You're a Kiowa pilot, you said?
I was. The airframe's gone now. So.
No, they're fucking awesome, dude. They have to go into a stall to shoot their missiles. Is that right?
A really fun anecdote is I was the distinguished honor grad from flight school, which means you get to pick whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
And I picked Kiowas, and everyone looked at me like I had a dick growing out of my head.
Yeah.
It's like the worst aircraft you have. I'm like, yeah, but I like it.
Okay. All right. And I'm John Koenig. I was also an Army Ranger. I'm a data scientist. Started this show, like the news, and I want to talk about it with veterans, and that's what we're doing. The topics today are the DNC, Ukraine battle updates, Israel Hamas deal or situation continuing on there, and then at the end we're going to talk about the Boeing Starliner that is stuck in space. So you guys ready?
Do it.
All right. So before we get into the DNC, the top story, Kamala Harris and all that, and putting the politics up front, which should be spicy, I just want everyone to know that we do have a good update and good intel on the severe anal torture. It's Israel. So definitely don't skip ahead to that. All right, on to the DNC. Kamala had her big speech, and I'll let you guys talk about what you think about it first, but it was on the last night of the DNC where she accepted the nomination. A lot of people saw it, a lot of people didn't, I guess, or at least people that we know, whatever. Most Democrats watched it, I guess. There was a lot of energy in the room. It was what it was, probably a little bit better production value than the Republicans, both very different conventions. So starting with Gabriel, what did you think about the DNC and especially Kamala Harris's speech?
Well, that was a fantastic presentation for the public, for casual voters in general. I do feel like, though, to get across the finish line and win this election, it's going to have to transcend the presentation. I think the issue with Harris and kind of the Democratic Party in general has just been lack of substance. Up to this point, from what I can tell, the campaign has been about, we're not Trump, or Trump is terrible, so vote for us. But, you go on her website and they don't even have a platform or issues tab. So you have, if I'm a casual voter and I'm undecided or independent, if there are any independents left, and I go on her website just to see where she stands on the issues, I have no clue, because there's not even a platform or issues tab to look at. So, yeah, the DNC, as far as presentation, did it give off a positive vibe? Yes. Did they look unified? Yes. I know they had a contingent of anti-war protesters who were kind of barricaded from the festivities inside. So the presentation to the public looked really nice, but does that translate to a victory in November? I don't know, because it's hard to tell, especially with the contingent of the Democratic Party, in particular the young voters who are really disturbed by what's happening in Gaza. The question is, do they still turn out for Harris and the Democrats? Do they stay home? Do they vote third party? So there's still a lot of unanswered questions for me, and I guess we ultimately won't know the answer until November 5th. But yeah, from a optics and presentation standpoint, I thought it was well done.
Okay, cool. Doug, what do you think?
Yeah, so for full disclosure, I know you watched the whole thing, John. I don't know how you did that, because I started projectile vomiting.
It was severe anal torture. It was worse than the anal torture.
I started projectile vomiting.
Yes. Dude, I got tons of anal torture jokes, so you better get ready and start laughing at the fucking jokes.
Right.
Go ahead.
But to Gabriel's point, so I think it was a good show, and that's what I'll equate it to. It was like a show, right? It's like a Vegas show.
Yeah. Broadway.
I guess to the point that the Democrats may have felt so downtrodden with Biden, like it was just this malaise of, there's just no hope left. At least it did get a lot of energy going. So that's that. But very much to Gabriel's point, and I've always, I really don't identify necessarily with any party. That doesn't mean I'm just too long in the military, right? I just try to vote for whoever. I just try to vote for whoever or whatever I think is going to come across the best policies, and there are none still, right? As Gabriel stated, there's no policies for you to actually get any factual information or to hold them to say you're not doing what you said you were going to do. to me, that's kind of sort of Kamala's record as VP, right? It's 3.5 years of not achieving anything, but wants to be promoted without any sort of vetting within the Democrat. There, she was just handpicked and says, "Hey, if you promote me, then I'll do everything that I said I'm going to do." I'm definitely not on this Democratic side. I think that party's gone very far afield. I was never going to vote for them anyway this cycle. But like I said, it was a good show, but I'm waiting to see what the facts are.
James, what do you think?
Like they said, it was vacuous. The fact that people don't know what her platform really is, I think it leads back to the core issue that these current Democratic leaders are actually followers. They're supposed to be our congressional leaders, but they're sitting there waiting and trying to do what they think the people want them to do, and they're getting it wrong over and over again. She was talking about pre-Trump normalcy. I think they've had enough time to try to restore that. It seems hypocritical, I guess, over and over again, the things that she was saying. They cry about the death of youth to gun violence, but they have an abortion ban outside that killed like 25 babies. It's just inconsistency, emptiness. I feel bad for the Democrats, but at the same time, they've got RFK just came over to the other side. That kind of shows like the reasonable unity that really is America. Like we can all think about the big issues, not these like minutia that divide us. So if anything, she's so awful, she's helping unite us. It's like a 9/11 without people dying.
Okay, so okay, all right.
Yeah, from the Democratic Party.
All right. Oh, tough act to follow there. So my analysis is that she was over-practiced. Like Doug said, it was like a theater show. Everything was manuscripted and fine-tuned, and consultants looked at it, and it's practice. There was no room for error. There was no spontaneity. There was very little authenticity. There was not any kind of new ideas. In my opinion, it was all just like a hodgepodge of Democratic blather that she was pitching. She relied heavily on her cute family and on celebrity star power, which they didn't really even get the super big shot celebrities. I mean, if you think about it, they could have done better than the celebrities they got. Everybody thought they were going to Beyonce. Like, Beyonce didn't show up.
Yeah, people only stuck around to see that.
The biggest hitter that wouldn't have been there was Michelle Obama. I mean, Barack's like kind of a hitter, but I mean, it's just like his career's over, and Michelle's, like just more vibrant. She's a little bit younger than I don't know, whatever. But she just has that energy, and she was the one that was really the focal point of it all. Like Michelle Obama, honestly, had a more dominant speech than Kamala Harris's speech, and it was more free flowing and authentic and spontaneous. She seemed more confident. It was like Kamala Harris was just trying to walk this tightrope and just get to the end of it without messing up, because I think she's at that top of her like talent ceiling. You know what I mean? Like you're in high school, you're playing tennis, you're playing basketball, whatever. You're getting older. The other kids are getting better, and then all of a sudden you just stop getting better. Like
you peaked.
You're like you peaked, right? Like she has definitely peaked, and I'm not going to get into her like starting her career off with Willie Brown and stuff like that, but like one way or another, she's gotten swept up in the political current of California and then America, and just gotten lucky, been in the right place at the right time. And she doesn't have any like really revolutionary ideas. She's not good off the cuff. They're not literally letting her out there to do interviews and stuff. They know she can't really hold her own. When she gets in that debate, it's going to be Trump is going to have a lot of avenues of attack on her. Face to face, and he's going to be physically bigger than her. I don't know. So
she hasn't even won anything in her own party, right? Like 0 primaries.
No.
They couldn't pass her by. They couldn't.
No, it's just circumstance. It's a circumstance.
It's just like the tail is wagging the dog over there. And I'm sorry, but you can't, when you've been in control of the government for 12 of 16 years, you can't blame the guy who was only there for 4 years for everything.
Yeah, and you fought every day the whole time.
That doesn't pass the bullshit test.
Yeah,
and the thing I actually felt bad for, and I really don't, because he's been a grifter for 50 years, but when you're dragging he's still the president, right? When you push the president till midnight, that barely, can make it past like 4 p.m,
mm-hmm.
and that's his speech. That just shows you how brutal, I guess, politics can be. Like, they made up their mind he's done with, and it's like, hey, we'll put you on PBS at fucking 02 in the morning.
Gabriel, what do you think?
Yeah, well, to that point about Biden and Harris's ascension to this point, I mean, it's very surreal to me, and not in a good way. I'm pretty convinced what we saw unfold with Biden was essentially a soft coup. I can't prove any of this stuff. It's all theories. I'm pretty convinced someone threatened him with the 25th Amendment and said, look, we're either going to do this the easy way or we're going to do this the hard way. The reason Harris was able to step into this position, my understanding is that all the campaign funds that Biden had already raised couldn't go to anyone else except for her because she was on his ticket already. So she was just kind of the convenient step when, back in June, the debate happened and the whole world saw what many of us already knew, which is like, we have a president who's just not running the show right now. That's what I mean about, I don't know if she gets to the finish line, because to me, there's this overwhelming sense of like, no one ever voted for this person. When she ran for president 4 years ago, she couldn't even make it to Iowa.
She would never win. She would never win.
So the whole thing just looks bad. The Democratic Party looks terrible. We had a soft coup. We had someone who was essentially selected, not elected. It's a hard pill to swallow, I think, for a lot more people than the media would have us to believe.
All right, James, I want to hear what you're up next, but I just wanted to say something about that, where Gabriel said that the campaign had to make Harris because couldn't give the money to somebody else, even though they raised a ton of money after it anyway. So even if they had to start from scratch, they have unlimited money. But let's just say, for example, if Michelle Obama wanted to do it, she could have superseded, but there's nobody else that could supersede. The point here, and after watching Michelle Obama's speech, first off, I just want to talk about Michelle Obama. Thank God she is not running, because she would beat Trump hands down. She knows it. Everybody knows it. Trump knows it. I mean, it's just like a fact. Now, the fact that she didn't step in and sacrifice her personal life to serve the country in that way shows that she is confident, and probably her husband too, that Kamala Harris has enough of a chance that they can stay on the sidelines and coach and push from the sidelines, where they can remain in their comfortable retired lives. They want to maintain their lives. So they have confidence in Kamala Harris. I think that was interesting. And I thought that Michelle would, but I guess she decided not to. But we got Kamala now. So, James, what do you think about – we watched Michelle Obama's speech together, right?
Yeah, correct.
What do you think about Michelle Obama, Kamala, DNC?
I definitely think the confidence from the other side of putting such a stooge forward scares everyone. Like, what do they know that we don't know? Maybe perhaps there's something we don't know about Michelle, like why she's not running. Maybe she's worried about it coming out. Who knows? I do believe they were trying to capitalize on Michelle's trans power, her transference power to Kamala as a woman of color and whatnot. Like the whole speech, the way she was talking, she's like basically like, Kamala's me. So if you would have voted for me, vote for Kamala. And that was kind of like, bullshit, not the same.
They're trying to say on the news, they're trying to hype Kamala as the female Obama. The female Obama is Michelle Obama. She's the runner.
Isn't
Kamala
it?
Harris, Kamala Harris is not an Obama. So what do you think about the female Obama, James?
The female Obama, do I believe she would beat Trump if she were in the race? I don't think so, honestly. I think even like their base that was behind them when Obama started. I mean, they went through Obama, and Biden was an extension of Obama. They're trying to place another extension, and I think people want something different. No different than they did when they were done with Bush and they wanted hope and change.
Do you think Kamala is the female Obama?
No, no, nowhere near that. You are right. It would be a very close race. That would scare me, honestly, if Michelle were on the Democratic ticket.
Doug, is Kamala the female Obama? Is Kamala the female Obama?
Not even close.
Not even close. Not even close.
It's a joke.
Not nearly as charismatic.
I don't know that it would be a hands down thing. I mean, I think, honestly, the citizenry is so down the middle. We're almost down to like single digit votes in states in the Electoral College. Nobody knows on any given election night. If the country's going to work itself out, I think the RFK Jr. thing is important in this regard. It's not that he's going to bring a shitload of votes to Trump, but if he brings at least some sanity back to the center away from the fringes. On the left, they're letting their fringes control their policy in like some sort of desperate act.
I mean, the conservatives are doing the same thing.
Right has its fringes too, but I think they're much more centered, like, go away.
Yeah, the right captured the medium.
Come on. All right. So, what I want to talk about next is advice for the Trump campaign. You guys will go around. I'll go last. He got the RFK endorsement the day after Kamala's speech. Tried to flip the script on her. It looked good. They did fireworks, all that shit. Gabriel, what's your advice for the Trump campaign? What can they do to like recapture the momentum?
Yeah, I mean, stay on message, stay on the issues. Lose the goofy stuff. Now, with Trump, it's so frustrating because it's like, I feel like if he stayed on message, he'd win in a landslide. But he can't help himself sometimes. And he trips and falls into these moments where, he's questioning the ethnicity of Kamala Harris and things that are just going to piss people off that don't even care about politics. It's like, I think there's a lot. We've gotten to a point where culturally we're so divided that, I think you can get away with not even talking about issues that much and squeak out an election. So if he goes into that stuff, then he's going to upset enough people who may not have even voted for Harris, and they'll come out and vote for it just because of that. But look, stay on message. You've got RFK now. I mean, I agree with Doug. That's probably not going to transfer a ton of votes, but to me, it kind of reinforces Trump's credentials as the anti-establishment juggernaut that he's been for all this time. I think he sort of lost his way there.
All right, James, real quick. What's your Trump advice?
Similar to Gabriel's, keep it simple. I think this has devolved into a communism versus freedom campaign at the very least. So as long as he stays patriotic, populist, I think that's going to be the popular opinion. Americans want to feel like their government cares about them over the outside world first. If they stay on path with that, now with RFK there too, I think he's got it in the bag.
Doug, what's your Trump advice?
Yeah, I totally agree with Gabriel. So the weakness, obviously, that we've stated on the Democratic side is they don't have any policies, right? If you just stick to policies and he doesn't even need to fight back on the personal stuff because that's all they got is he's a bad guy, right? Don't even bother. Just let that roll off your back. Just stick to your policies and actually highlight the policies on how you're going to make the country better or great again, to use his catch term, right? And you can tailor that down specifically to states that you're stumping in, right? Because every state has very specific things, maybe issues that are different. You can tailor your policies and talk about that so that it reaches those local voters. I mean, I wouldn't fight back on all the personal stuff because that'll just make them double down. Let them just say he's a bad guy. Okay, well, you know what? You're not hiring me to be a nice guy. You're hiring me to govern.
Okay, cool. Well, very good advice, all of you. I'm very glad because my advice is totally different than yours, because I would go in the other direction with it. First off, most importantly, Trump has to fire his campaign leaders. His campaign sucks. They're not hitting on anything. I don't even know who's in charge of his campaign, but they're not hitters. I love Kellyanne Conway. Keep Kellyanne Conway. Stop listening to Don Jr. Get some professional hitters in there and restart the campaign. Second, ditch J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance sucks, big dick, and is horrible and is dragging everything down. Replace him with RFK Jr., and then you've got Trump Kennedy instead of Trump Vance. That makes a difference. Ditch. I'm not done yet.
Oh, yeah. Continue, sir.
Ditch the pro-lifers. Ditch the pro-lifers. Sidestep that whole abortion thing the best you can, because that'll drag him down, especially with J.D. Vance with all his dumb shit. Right? If Trump wants to be Machiavellian after the election, he can go cuddle up with the pro-life people again, but he cannot win the election if he's out there with his pro-life shit. Still not done. Second, you guys said focus on the issues. I do think you should focus just on the economy, but this is not a battle of the issues. Everybody knows the issues. It's a battle of the personalities, and Trump is going to win by dragging her into the mud and suffocating her face down in the mud. You know what I'm saying? He does not have a strong personality. She does not have a strong brand. He is more powerful than she is. She's being propped up by powerful forces, but he can take her out at the knees, and he needs to just take her out. You know what I mean? Like, he's called her every name in the book, humiliate her at the debate, find every, way to pick at her and just make it nasty as fuck. I mean, that's politics, like bare knuckle politics, and just destroy her. I mean, that's how he wins. And I think he'll do it. I think he hasn't really figured out his attacks yet, but I think he's going to get there because he's a marketing genius, in my opinion. Although he is getting older, but he is a genius. So,
well, if it wasn't for RFK Jr.'s wife, he wouldn't have considered the VP slot. So that's an immovable object. Replacing JD Vance, though. Oh, yeah, that's tied to that. JD, yeah, he's completely eclipsed now. As soon as RFK Jr. stepped on that stage, because so many Trump fans love RFK Jr. because of the medical stuff, the COVID stuff, that's all tied to him and how he spoke out against vaccines and things like that. There's a large portion of America that is still pissed off about all that. Their businesses got crushed, and it wasn't based in reality, all of it. They like Rand Paul a lot for going after Fauci. That's all connected to RFK. And the CIA deep state stuff that people know is happening, Epstein, the JFK assassination, that's all tied to RFK joining the ticket. Yeah, Trump, I think the movement's bigger than him.
No, I love what James just said, because it's like the way politics is, I've watched it evolve over the last 10 years. And I think the Trump and Sanders movements, Bernie Sanders movements, were sort of indicative of this. It's like, I think it's less about left versus right and more about dissidents and anti-establishment versus the machine.
Mm-hmm.
The problem, and why there's so many of us, including myself on the left, that are so disillusioned with the Democratic Party, is it increasingly looks, well, it doesn't just look, I mean, it is. The Democrats have become the establishment. The only voices speaking out against the establishment and all the deeply entrenched bureaucracy and the systems that are making life very, very hard for working class people, everyday people in our country, the only people speaking out on behalf of the working class feels like the populist right, which is, the Trump wing of the Republican Party. So, yeah, I agree a ton with what James said, especially in regards to RFK Jr.
Sounds like you're straddling the political divide, Gabriel.
I think everyone is.
He's a veteran, dude. We don't have a choice.
yeah. Nowadays.
Next topic is Ukraine. Ukraine has split into three battlefronts. There's the north, the east, which is the most important, and the south. I was talking to James about this earlier today. The front line is 600 miles long. Obviously, we talked about the August 6th invasion by the Ukrainians into the Kursk Oblast region. They just blew up 2 bridges to prevent the Russians from taking it back. The Russians have been moving troops to take back Kursk from other parts of Russia rather than from other parts of the Ukrainian front line. The Ukrainians had wanted to do this incursion into the northern front line in order to draw troops away from the main fighting in the east and probably the south, but mainly the east. So the Russians basically said, we're not pulling the troops back. We're going to continue assaulting in the east. We're going to scrape together troops from wherever we can find them, and we're going to put Kursk on medium long-term planning. They're not going to immediately attack it right now. There's some other stuff going on there, but let's just get the conversation started. Who wants to go first on Ukraine battles? I'm going to call on someone.
Like a teacher.
Yeah, I'll go.
I think okay, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah. So the South is fairly deadlocked right now at this point. They still have the port at Odessa so they can get their shipments out. Although why the Russians haven't done a naval blockade, probably international pressure, but whatever. Yeah, the Ukrainian invasion in the north was fairly smart. And if you look at the east where the Russians are penetrating in the Donbass, if you look at it, if you actually just look at that map and don't look at the symbols, it looks just like the Battle of the Bulge, man. It's a very narrow thing. If you were smart Ukrainians, you could probably cut them off and do as you will. I don't know how many forces he has aligned that way.
I mean, they're very outnumbered, very outgunned. We know the Ukrainians are very outgunned.
Of course they are. They always were. It would have been over in what Putin said in a week if it didn't if you didn't get the West to support it. I think the one thing in the research that I found the most interesting, and it's not the tactics, is that Lukashenko is like politicking two things. Lukashenko is politicking Putin to put an end to it because he's getting the itchy twitchies like Ukraine might go after them.
The president of Belarus.
Yes, and that will, because he was not obviously popularly elected. He achieved his status by coup, and that might stir up his own folks to depose him. The other thing is the other guy that's one of the private military forces.
Oh, I got notes on him. Georgy Zakharevsky, founder of Paladin PMC. Go ahead.
Really cool.
Is openly calling for a military coup of Putin because of not just the military failures in Ukraine. I don't care about the generals purge, that they're Russians. They do that shit all the time. But how bad the country has gotten. If you take them at face value, because they are Russians and they like chess, I mean, he could just be a plant to see who comes out of the woodwork. But if you take him at face value, then he's got a pulse somewhat of the country. I found those far more interesting than any tactical situation on the ground.
Yeah, no, I really like where Doug went with that conversation too, because that is more intriguing in the long run. But look, my overall feeling on this, because I know this is my first time being on the show, so I should probably give a little context. I think this should be the front page of headlines every single day until there's a resolution, because we are quite literally playing with fire right now. I think if it gets to a point where they think Moscow is at risk of being toppled, I think they'd go nuclear. I think we need to come back to the negotiation table, because all this comes down to the Donbass region. That was the whole centerpiece of this invasion. Was Putin felt as if the Russian-speaking people in that region were being persecuted, slaughtered, etc., by the Zelensky government. So he wanted to take control of that. We need to come back to the negotiation table. We need to revisit the Minsk agreement that I believe the U.S. and UK scrapped before it had a chance to come to fruition. But this issue actually really keeps me up at night, because I think we are playing with fire, and I think closer to a nuclear conflict than the mainstream media will have you to know, or that the public at large realizes. And so it actually really terrifies me, and I think we need to scale back and come back to negotiating with the Russians.
You should meet my friend Mason. He loves World War III. He's so obsessed with it.
Yeah.
You guys could talk about it nonstop.
How does he know? He hasn't tried it yet.
James, we were talking about this earlier today, and yeah, they're attacking in the Donbass, the main efforts in the eastern part of Ukraine, trying to take over this area, which is like the economic heart of Ukraine. If they cut that out, you essentially don't have Ukraine. I was talking to James, and James was like, where are the farms? And I was like, oh, they're in the West. He's like, we got to protect the farms, keep those farms safe. You know that?
I was surprised that they went for the industrial instead of the breadbasket.
I know, James loves a good bread basket.
Mm-hmm.
All right, James, what do you think about the Ukraine situation?
Almost along the same thread, old Georgy Zakharevsky, what did he quote? Our country isn't on the brink of disaster. It's right next to it. Drones are flying right up to Moscow. So either this guy's going to get killed like the other private military contractor that was his friend did, or he's trying to scream and tell everyone the true situation, the paper tiger situation of Russia, which could also be stupid and traitorous, because at the same time, we're at this weird shift in our World War III dynamics where U.S. carriers are becoming obsolete potentially. We need to rely on submarines or space-based defenses more. We got these hypersonic missiles. So, Putin might be thinking, hey, hold out a little bit longer with this bluff game. Dumbass, don't let the whole world know that we are a paper tiger right now and they'll topple us. And, if he can make it to this next stage of evolution in, the new warfare, this technological leap that we're taking, basically the next nuclear age, and unwittingly, I guess Ukraine is tied to it because it's exposing the capabilities of Russia, compared to our, proxy capabilities. So it's a little more important than just the farmland and the factories. It's sort of letting everyone know what we can do.
Yeah, I was just joking around. All right. So this guy, Zakharevsky, who's protesting Putin, talking shit on Telegram. I'm just going to read what he wrote, translated into English, obviously. He says, our country is not just on the brink of disaster or already right next to it. Our country is already in trouble, big trouble. Drones are flying all over central Russia, right up to Moscow and St. Petersburg. They even attacked the Kremlin. Our Black Sea fleet is being pushed out. It's being pushed out as if we are not a great power with a great fleet, but some third-rate country. Our aviation is practically not working because it is also being pushed out. We're standing in the same positions we took more than 2 years ago, and partly in those to which we retreated. The population is dying out, becoming impoverished, drinking itself to death. No one cares. All they have time to do is bring in migrants, and all this was done by the so-called president, the great Putin. I think he had to talk some more shit, but you get the idea. I mean, this dude's like going all out on Putin there. Another thing you guys didn't mention is that the Ukrainians are suffering from poorly trained troops. The Russians, in their push in the east, are suffering heavy casualties, but they're outnumber the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians are using these conscripts and people that don't really want to fight. Some of them are refusing to fire. Some of them struggle with weapons or basic combat movements. Some of them are abandoning the battlefield after even light shelling. The Russians are increasing their attacks to capitalize on troop fatigue and shortages because NATO has only provided about half of the ammunition and rockets that it promised to Ukraine, and they're basically begging us for more ammunition.
I mean, the Russians are kind of down to conscripts too. I mean, they've still got trained forces, but they've got to spread themselves over a much larger area, right? They still got to
600 miles.
No, not there. I mean, they got to guard their whole country, right? So either you take the conscripts and you ship them to, fucking Kamchatka and bring those trained regiments over to Ukraine. They'll be happy about that. But it's not like they haven't taken a shitload of casualties. I mean, they're real top-notch frontline troops taking a beating.
I got a quote from the article here. They say the main problem is the survival instinct of newcomers. Before, people could stand until the last moment to hold the position. Now, even when there is light shelling of firing positions, they are retreating. What this accentuates is in our societies, there's only so many people that will fight. I mean, just some people are just like never going to fight. They can't do shit. Like, you put a rifle in their hands and they'll just like curl up in a ball on the ground. I mean, we only have so many people who will fight. Anyway.
That's why drafts don't work. I mean, this whole thing sounds like a stalemate to me. I think a lot more people are going to die, unfortunately. I don't see how you get to an outcome where either side actually wins.
Gabriel, what do you think about the female draft?
What do I think about the female draft? I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of any kind of draft.
Don't you favor equality as a liberal man?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of any draft. As someone who served, I mean, I went in at a time when we were – I entered the Army in 2008. So we were, in the midst of the Iraq War. We were stretched in, and I remember we were bringing in guys and girls who, quite frankly, just didn't belong in uniform. And I hate to say that, I really do, but it was like I got a sense of the desperation.
What year?
Recruiting forces. 2008.
It was an 8.
Okay.
I could sense the desperation of the recruiting forces by the quality of people I was serving with. And then when things started to ramp down, I feel like that changed. I was watching guys get literally thrown out of the Army for like infractions that maybe a few years earlier they would have just gotten an Article 15 for.
Well, you really pivoted off my question there, but all right, let's talk about something else. Jeez.
Sure.
Were you talking about U.S. draft? You're talking about Ukrainian draft, right?
No, they're about to add the female draft thing into the bill and whatever.
That never works out. They've tried it.
Don't have nightmares over their nuclear forces. I mean, it is nuclear, so it only takes one.
Well, that's the weird thing is they've already crossed the threshold.
You'd be surprised at how much of our shit doesn't work.
All right, we're talking about the Middle East. The Middle East. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Anthony Blinken, bird-wristed Secretary of State, fails to get any kind of deal in the Middle East. They're saying they need to get Hamas on board. But, I mean, realistically, the Israelis are bargaining pretty tough. He says all this, like, diplomatic bullshit, like time is of the essence. Netanyahu's holding tough on negotiating about holding military positions in the Gaza Strip along the Philadelphia corridor and this new Net-Zarim corridor down the middle of the Gaza Strip to segment Gaza Strip. And there's supposedly 110 hostages left. Before we start, I'll personally say that I think the plan here from the Israeli side is that obviously they want to depopulate the north and then set up this like kind of blockade to not let people repopulate up. essentially condensing the Gaza Strip in half, like folding it in half. And then at some point, they'll start doing settlements or whatever in the north, and they'll slowly start encroaching on land in the north and further convincing the people living in the north to exit, a one-way exit where you're not coming back. And this has been a pattern throughout history, going back to the beginning. So what do you guys think about the current state of the diplomacy in the Middle East?
I think, like it or not, we sided with the Jews after World War II. We brought them under our wing like our little brother. And the Muslims have declared war on us and the Jews. We have to back our allies. October was their September 11th. It was pretty awful, the things that happened. Their response has been a little heavy-handed, but, we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan some heavy-handed responses, collateral damage. I think we need to stand by Israel. These Muslims have said for 20 years that they want to force immigration and take over the whole world. Ever since you and I were doing missions in 2007 together, they've got this global domination theory. I never heard it from the Israelis. So,
James, do you know any Muslims?
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of Muslims. I've rented a farm from Muslims from India that are, there's a lot of peaceful, good Muslims, but the extremist viewpoint, which Iran pushes through the whole world right now, and that's the problem. Iran's the instigator.
All right. Who's up on the Middle East? Who's next?
As ineffective and full of shit as he is, I can't hold Blinken responsible for not getting a deal. No one's got a deal except for one guy who got a fucking deal.
Yeah, no shit.
Right, but he doesn't get credit for it.
Mm-hmm. Wait, who are you talking about?
Trump.
I'm talking about Trump.
The Abraham
Oh,
Accords.
yeah, okay. Yeah. All right.
There's one guy, think back in your entire lifetime. No one's got a peace deal there except for him. Or at least he came closest. This is, I'm going to get on this high horse trying to drive John crazy. This is actually our fault, right?
Yeah, of course.
So now, to your point, James, about if you think Israel has overreacted, we invaded 2 fucking countries. We shipped our entire army.
That's what I'm saying.
We
We
actually made up a reason to attack a country.
Yeah, USS Maine, the Gulf of Tonkin.
We were not starving them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't care. They all fucking.
Oh, you don't care. Okay. It's a false analogy. It's a false analogy. They're not behaving the same way we did. We were tough. They're in a blood rage.
What about World War II standards? We firebombed fucking villages, and then the nuke thing.
It's not World War II. And starving people is tough. It's really, really, really tough.
To the Israelis, it feels like that probably. This is their, apocalypse, dude. Their D-Day.
All right, Gabriel, you get a chance to go?
Well, I'm sorry. Am I done?
Can you tighten it up a little bit here? Let's go.
Yeah. We had the fucking Iranians boxed in. They were begging us not to overthrow them. We had 2 American armies on their side. We had our Navy to the south. We had the fucking Kurds to their north. We had bankrupted them. I can't tell you where my sources are, but the fucking mullahs were begging us not to invade them because they knew their regime was fucking going to be over. And you know what fucking shitbag pussies did? They gave them all their cash back, and now they refunded all their fucking proxy bitches. And now we got this fucking nightmare.
Yeah, you see what happened.
This is our fault, a lack of conviction.
You're talking about the Obama administration, and they also didn't support the Iranian student protests.
No, I'm talking about...
Doug, you got anything else?
Anyway, go ahead. You wanted to get away from me. So fuck off.
Yeah.
Sure, it took 53 minutes, but I think I finally found an issue that we disagree on. At my core, I'm very anti-war, anti-interventionist in general, but specifically in regards to Gaza, Israel, Palestine. Whenever I hear these leaks or, these little news headlines about being on the brink of a ceasefire, negotiations are tightening up, I just find it hard to take serious. I don't think Netanyahu wants a ceasefire or a resolution to this. I think very similar. I think it was James who mentioned about them cutting off the north. I think that's kind of the long-term plan. I find it just a moral abomination what's gone on there with targeting civilian populations and cutting off aid and targeting journalists, targeting human rights workers who are just trying to get food into non-combatant citizens of Gaza. So I've been very vocal and outspoken against this war in Gaza since it started. But I think long term, I'm just not sure. And in Trump, there's a quote that I've heard from Trump where he himself even said that he didn't feel like Netanyahu was very interested in breaking a deal. I've even heard Trump say that, and I kind of agree with that.
It's obvious he's not trying to make it.
Dude, we need to take Jerusalem over and be like the bouncer in the bar. Be like, y'all fucking get along, no bullshit, or we're going to smash both your heads. That's
Should
what
we
he's
throw on
at.
our Knights Templar outfits and just fucking roll in like the Crusades? So, Gabriel,
Sure.
I got two things. It's not trying to change your mind at all.
It's okay.
One, I mean, Gaza's pretty fucking dense population. I mean, it's very, very hard to be surgical there. That's not an excuse. I know they're rolling through, but when you got microwave babies, you might understand a little bit. Two, the main thing is, ask yourself this: why aren't all the other Arab countries helping the Palestinians?
Yeah, why don't they accept them?
The Egyptians could have let all the refugees into the Sinai. There's fucking nothing there, man. It's not like they're going to be in downtown Cairo. You could set up all kinds of things. There's a reason for that. They don't want them anywhere. They don't.
They want them right there, actually, to instigate this war.
I mean, they can use it. They can use it as a thing. I mean, I get it. It's terrible. I'm not making excuses for it. But there are other reasons.
They don't care about the Palestinians. They care about the land. They need the Palestinians in order to reclaim that land, because they'll be like, we want that land back because of these Palestinians right here. But really, they just want the Holy Land back. We essentially handed the Holy Land over to the Jews from the Muslims that have had it for a long time before that. So we actually set this whole thing off.
That's the big disconnect with Americans, is they don't understand the rest of the world, Muslim, communist, China or Russia, or the Nazis. They think in 1,000-year reigns. We're thinking 4 to 10 years and all this bullshit, but these people are thinking long term. And if we don't find a way to explain this to our general population as a democracy, we will fail eventually.
We can't get our population to believe shit that happened 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so follow up on our previous story. Very important is the severe anal torture happening at the Israeli prison known as the infamous Israeli prison known as Sde Tiemann, which is kind of like their Abu Ghraib. I'll get into it and describe it, but I personally think that the reason why this is happening is because there's this cycle of pattern there where Hamas takes a hostage, and then Israel captures these guys, and then in order they negotiate, they trade back. So it's like they know these guys are going to get out, right? And so this dude's going to get out. Fuck him. We're going to fuck him in the ass a million times until he gets out of here or whatever, and make him as miserable as possible while he's there, and then trade him for an Israeli hostage later rather than just treating him human rights wise. So I think it has something to do with this cycle of prisoner trades they have.
Eye for an eye.
Yeah, this is pretty notorious here. They're saying day-to-day torture, total dehumanization. A female medical worker called it unimaginable. The worst of the people, the ones that got arrested, are from Force 100, which has been really hard on the prisoners with broken teeth, broken bones, and they used dogs to attack them as well as vile acts. And everybody saw what was going on. So my question to you, Gabriel, is this the start of the war on anuses?
The war on what?
Great smile, doesn't he? Hey, Gabriel, you got a great smile, bro. Keep it up.
It's a loaded question, no pun intended. It very well could be.
Dump out an answer.
It very well could be, actually.
All right, look, and I said too that they were probably fucking him in the ass with baseball bats, Louisville Slugger or something like that. Electric batons, way worse. So electric batons, Force 100. All right, Gabriel, what do you think about the torture?
Well, it's not okay. So it does sound a lot like Abu Ghraib. It sounds like perhaps things that are happening at Guantanamo. And again, is from a standpoint of moral clarity, I'm obviously against that. I mean, I wouldn't want to partake in doing that to another human being. Obviously, would not want to be subjected to it, and wouldn't want my country associated with it. So if those reports are true, then obviously, I find it appalling on just a human level that transcends any kind of political standpoint or ideology, or whether I support the Israelis or the Palestinians. Like, I think that's an appalling degradation of human rights if that stuff is taking place. And I said the same thing when things happening at Guantanamo were exposed to.
All right, Doug, are you against horrific, life-threatening anal injuries? Okay, come on. Do we have anything? Is he frozen? Like, sucks, man. All right, we lost Doug. James, what do you think about the torture?
I thought he was just acting like Biden, dude.
Lost Doug. We'll get Doug back.
What the hell are we talking about? They torture them. Oh,
Life threatening.
okay, yeah. Oh no, like they're talking about them acting like shitheads, like they're enemies. In their mind, it's biblical, old school, an eye for an eye. They're trying to figure out a way to somehow balance the scales of the things that happen to this. The children. We all heard the story about the little boy that was like his eye was gouged out, and he's like, "Why am I alive?" He saw his parents shot, and we've seen what they do, John, in a different form. I mean, actually, the very same form as the October attack. That's where they're coming from, but the fault lies in the leadership to not remind these men that you are supposed to be of higher moral caliber if you want to be the good guys, especially with this religious fight between these two sects. They're supposed to believe in the same God. It's just, the details they argue about. How can they possibly believe that the same God wants them to do that to each other?
All right, well, Doug fell off, might come back or whatever. I'm just going to text him real quick.
Hey, I'm here.
Oh, cool. He's back. Cool. All right. Doug, do you want to say anything about the horrific anal torture?
The severe anal torture? I like that they threw severe in there.
Grotesque.
Anal injury.
Yeah, there's varying levels of this, apparently.
I don't think you need a qualifying adjective for anal torture. I think it's important. What was your question to Gabriel? Do you think this is the beginning of the war on the innocent?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to say that for 100% that our troops or agencies haven't done anything else, either by proxy or personally. I think it's small. Do I think this Force 100 is doing this? I'm glad that they're arrested, and hopefully they will be prosecuted. It always cracks me up, the names they come up with, like Force 100. Sounds like some sort of African mercenary group to me. I hope that the Israeli Defense Ministry finds them and fucking kicks their balls. I mean, because to your point, John, what you're saying is, all right, we're going to fuck with this dude because he's going to go back and tell him, yeah, I had a baseball bat shoved up my ass. Well, so when they do it next and they capture an Israeli, civilian or not, what do you think is going to happen to them?
I mean, it's de facto they're both torturing each other. All right, cool. We're moving on to Boeing Starliner, outer space. So we got, again, I said 3 Rangers. This Starliner story, I will start off with, has a theme of this, the same as like the Rangers rescuing the SEALs all the time and stuff like that, because there's some rescuing that needs to be done up there on the Boeing side of things here. So June 5th, 2024, the Starliner went up for the first time with human astronauts in it. There were 2 problems with the thrusters and the helium leaks. That's what they know about. They took an Atlas V rocket. Starliner went up to the International Space Station. They detected abnormalities in the propulsion system. Before they launched in May, on the ground, they detected a helium leak, but determined that it was not an unacceptable risk, and they went ahead with it anyways. Once they got into space, they detected 5 additional helium leaks. 5 of 28 thrusters were failing, and they're not the big crux of the matter is they have these 2 people up there. If they go in this thing and try to come back to Earth in it, they might die. And otherwise, they would have to wait until February 2025 when SpaceX comes up. SpaceX would save them 2 seats and fly them down. It's also possible that the Starliner can take itself back down, and it might crash, it might not. It can go back unmanned. So right now, they're testing the shit out of it. They're trying to patch the leaks and everything, and they're supposed to make a decision. Boeing is very defensive because this is a multi-billion-dollar project for them. They're very embarrassed. If these astronauts don't come down on their ship, it really damages the company. It could damage the stock price, damage your reputation, brand, all that shit. So what do you guys think about the situation here with the Starliner stranded up in space?
So this is on me because this is my gig.
All right, Doug.
So you are right. The helium leaks. So they knew there were leaks before they launched. They still launched, and then they discovered other leaks, which is affecting the thrusters. They did make a decision today that they are going to bring the Starliner capsule back unmanned, back to Earth, and try and work on it and all that. And yes, SpaceX is sending the 2 astronauts are going to come back on the Dragon module from SpaceX. Although there's a question of whether their suits are compatible, but I guess they're still going to do it. But they're not changing their flight schedule, so that's not till February. So that's 8 months in space. They're supposed to be there for 8 days. That's not that big a deal. They have some astronauts that do 12-month missions. They're in a relatively safe spot.
Better cancel your gym membership, motherfuckers. Stop loss.
Yeah. Stop loss, SpaceX.
Time and a half.
Space Force.
I mean, Boeing has had a very rough couple of years, not just in space flight, but obviously with all their regular aircraft as well. The takeaway that I really want to get to is that when you get to the predominance of either the bottom line or political pressure or whatever supersedes the proper process of checks and balances, scientific checks and balances, fucking disaster is guaranteed to happen.
Yeah, PMCS, dude, basic.
And I think that is the problem. Like, they're so far behind on the Starliner. NASA's tripping out, right? Boeing's trying to meet their stuff, and they're like, we got to go.
Yeah, they got doors falling off planes and shit.
Right. Now you got humans on board.
Whistleblowers getting fucking executed.
To his credit, like, Elon could totally be gloating over this. Like, all right, we're going to go rescue the people that NASA and Boeing stranded.
It's the Rangers rescuing the SEALs.
Yeah, dude. Elon's on our side.
Right. Like, it takes him 2 days to rotate a Falcon rocket, where Starliner, provided it meets its scope, can be refueled and reused almost immediately when it gets there. I think if you're, when you let other outside influences, it's a weird analogy, but I'll even tie it to the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, which that lucky 3-year anniversary is tomorrow. Somebody made a political promise, we're going to do this. And they're like, get the fuck out now. There was no planning. They're just like, all right, everybody drop your shit. Get on a fucking plane.
Oh, dude, I'll tie it directly to Afghanistan.
Unless you hold people to a stringent standard, especially in space, because space doesn't care.
All right, Doug, do you think that Boeing is killing whistleblowers?
Well, I don't know. Maybe they're outsourcing to Hillary.
Scared to submit the truth, huh? Yeah, this dude was like a day out from testifying. His fucking died in his car or some dumb shit. Suspect.
I agree with that last sentence, and my answer to the question is yes, absolutely. I think they do. They've been killing whistleblowers with approval. But yeah, with the Starliner, it's appalling. It's insane that we're even considering PR damage or the monetary impact on Boeing if that thing comes back without the astronauts in it. Get the astronauts back safe and sound. That's priority number one, whatever it takes. I don't give a damn about Boeing's reputation or their profit. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, these people have had airplanes where...
That's why they're leaving them there, though.
Right. The freaking doors have busted open mid-flight and all this stuff. So it just seems like it's an obvious pattern with them. It's corporate greed at its height, profit, considering profit over quality of the product, safety of the people using those products. So whatever it takes to get those astronauts back is obviously what I think all of us would be in support on this panel. But I have no consideration about how it impacts the company that sent them up there.
NASA used to shuttle these astronauts back and forth in the space shuttle. They signed a deal in 2014. They authorized Boeing and SpaceX, 2 companies that can do these missions, shuttling astronauts back and forth. It started in 2020. SpaceX first did this in 2020, and they've had 9 successful missions. this in 2024, middle, whatever, 2024 by Boeing is their first manned mission, and it's all fucked up. And Boeing is like the government corporation, the fat government contractor, like the no-fail contractor, one of the biggest companies in the world, I think, or at least in government contracting. I mean, this model doesn't work. There needs to be reform. If SpaceX wasn't there, if we didn't have Elon Musk, we would be double fucked. Everyone's like, oh, China, don't worry about China. They're not going to kick our ass. Yeah, because Elon Musk has saved us on these electric cars and saved us on the SpaceX stuff. And he bought the Twitter and turned that into this free speech thing, and all the pornography went wild on it.
Oh, hell, Elon.
Get your political opinions and your hookers in the same place. Side by side. If anyone would want to counter America, they just have to kill Elon Musk, and we would be fucked.
Yeah, he's our only intelligent person left, it seems.
Only intelligent person with a ton of money.
Yeah.
Boeing is essentially, like this project in particular, is essentially taxpayer funded. I mean, we're fucking paying Boeing to make this Starliner. I mean, it was a NASA project, right? A NASA partnership with Boeing. Elon and SpaceX, that's all his cash, right? Or investors or private funds. So he can do what he wants with it. And he can take his time to make sure it's done right. Because he knows the market. He knows if he fucks it up, they're going to take a big hit because everyone's gunning for him.
I disagree.
And that's where I think Boeing was exposed to rush to failure on this project.
I disagree.
They already delayed it a number of times.
All right, I disagree. You said Elon can take his time and make sure it's right. The government is the one taking their motherfucking time because they get paid no matter what, and they want to kick it. Elon Musk is not taking his time. He might be an asshole.
He can make sure it's done right. It's his company.
I mean, yeah, but he's not taking his time. He's working fast as fuck.
Working robotics, everything. 12-hour shifts, apparently. That's what his factory workers are posting on TikTok.
Government's taking their time.
Yeah.
Gabriel, what do you think about Elon Musk?
Mixed feelings. I mean, as someone who's an unwavering advocate of free speech, I love him in that regard. I love what he's done on Twitter, now known as X. I think he's like a lot of us, where he's complicated. I mean, I know he endorsed Trump and people feel like he's a right winger, but it's he's also kind of an environmentalist too. He's been a pioneer with electric vehicles. On balance, more good than bad, I think, has come from Elon Musk, and he's innovative. And like you guys have mentioned, his missions keep being successful, whereas Boeing's have not. So overall, I'm very appreciative to him. And I also think X for me has been a big part of my political evolution too, from being staunch Democrat to kind of, open-minded, left-leaning, independent, free thinker.
I'm more liberal than you, motherfucker. I need to get some real liberals on this goddamn show. Jesus Christ. You're probably fucking voting for Trump. God damn it.
Yes, dude, you got to join the party, brother.
I know. There was only one issue we disagreed on today. So to answer your question, yeah, I'm a fan. I don't agree with everything that comes out of his mouth, but nor do I with anyone. So
what he does have is vision. I mean, there's a reason that he's not 90% of CEOs. If you're a competitor and your competition has fucked up this badly, you'd be pouncing on them every which way, right? And he actually came out and made a statement. He's no, we need this aircraft from Boeing or spacecraft from Boeing, because I think he actually believes in getting a multi-planetary civilization. He's we fucking need it. I want it to be successful.
Yeah, he needs the government involvement. That's powerful. They've got the monopoly on violence. They determine the world and its affairs.
So, all right, let's go around one last time. Everybody can say goodbye or any final little thing they want to blurt out. So let's start with Gabriel, since he's newest.
Well, this was awesome. Let's do it again. I'm all about, you'll hear me say this a lot, conversations, dialogue, sitting down with people you don't agree with. I think it's super important. It's something I kind of jump through hoops to try to do. So I appreciate John having me on and you guys engaging in the conversation. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks for just participating.
Yeah.
Let's see. James, you want to go next?
Sure. Gabriel, Doug, very good meeting you guys. It was very enlightening conversation, and I would like to repeat it again. Good to meet you guys. Rangers lead the way.
Pandering to the Ranger crowd.
first and foremost, Gabriel, you did a great job.
Man, thank you.
You really did a great job.
That's right.
And everybody else, go fuck yourself.
Right on.
All right, I think it was a really good show, and I'm going to continue trying to get quasi-liberals, I guess, on to come up on the show to diversify it out. But we got our 4-person veteran news show, going to have it next week. I don't currently have anyone booked right now, but I'm going to solve that after I finish editing up episode 28 right now. So thanks for watching, and hopefully see you guys next week. Bye.